Welcome into the Lucas podcast. Lucas, Frankel, Mike Lucas here with you. And Mike, I hope you weren't like me and your fantasy commissioner didn't make you draft over a week ago. And I drafted Travis Kelce with the 5th overall pick. And now he hurt his knee and who knows if he'll play this season. They say it's minor, but I can't stand these commissioners who draft early. You should draft the Tuesday or the Wednesday before the Thursday night football game. And that's what it should be. And anyone who says otherwise should not be involved in fantasy football because this is ridiculous. I'm annoyed. I missed out on drafting Cole Kmet by 1 pick, and now my whole fantasy season is on the verge of going down the drain.
Our fantasy draft for the show is tomorrow afternoon at 4:30. So
what?
Do it the day before.
So Travis Kelce, I imagine he would have been a top 6 pick.
So we do a 2-quarterback league. So the first 8 picks will most likely be quarterbacks. So it's not an exact comparison. Now I have the 8th pick. I hope someone's stupid enough to not take a quarterback because I think there are 7 quarterbacks in the first and second tier combined. So I'm praying someone's dumb enough to take Justin Jefferson or Chase or someone else, a running back, in those first 7, 8.
I don't know. I necessarily agree with that strategy, though. I mean, a first round. I mean, I never done 2 quarterback leagues, so I guess it's not fair for me to say. But
Frank, let me tell you. Hold on, no, let me tell you. I never did it before last year. I had the first pick. I took Jonathan Taylor first, and I lost. I came dead last.
Well, Jonathan Taylor didn't have a very good year.
The 3 guys who had the best record in the league, including the guy who won and the guy he beat in the championship, went quarterback with their first 2 picks. Quarterback scored the most points, and if you have 2 studs, you're going to be well ahead of everyone else. Like, for example...
So you get Mahomes and Fields with your first 2 picks. I'm not that Mahomes. Fields is probably not dropping around 2 then if you're doing that.
Fields is one of the top 7 guys.
So, yeah, no chance of Mahomes Fields. Okay. Interesting.
It's a whole – and to be honest, I thought I was going to hate it. I think it's actually way more fun. But we can save our fantasy debates. You asked me, would it be a top 6 pick? Travis Kelce, outside of quarterbacks, I'm going with the no running back strategy this season. In case anyone's watching this for tomorrow, I will not be taking a running back early. I would have him 7th. I think there's 5 receivers more. I just think Kelce, as good as he is, at some point has to fall off a tiny bit, and even a fall off from him is still infinitely better than every other tight end in football. However, I would take one of those stud receivers. But now Cooper Kupp's hurt, so maybe 6. So you're right in the right range. Maybe you reached a little bit, Frank, but you're right in the right range.
Kupp to me was undraftable just because, for A, he's already hurt again, which we didn't know going into the draft, but I had crossed him off. But I basically look at the complexion of their offense with Valdez-Scantling, Sky Moore, and Kadarius Toney. First of all, Kadarius Toney's hurt every week.
Never plays.
So, who are they throwing the ball to besides Kelce? And that's
you're
the
right.
whole logic.
You're right. Yeah, who knows?
That's literally the only reliable target that Mahomes has. And if Kelce is if he's healthy, he's going to feast. I'm just really annoyed that I missed it. By the way, one other thing before we dive into Colorado football and the NFL, which is my new favorite college football team, Colorado Buffaloes. Emerson got a nice little shout out on the Bill Simmons podcast.
So did I. Listen, you didn't introduce me as Mikey McNuggets of the Bill Simmons podcast. No, this is Mike. Bad job out of you.
He didn't. I wish Bill Simmons would have asked more questions about it. He was like, "Oh, nice." He didn't really elaborate or follow up with questions on anything. It's just, "Oh, nice."
Yeah, I mean, it was the end of an hour-and-a-half podcast. Obviously not taped live. He did a segment with Heifetz first, and then he did a segment with G. Bush from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Shout out to G for making that happen. And a real quick backstory on how that all came to be, Franco, was Bill Simmons actually DM'd G on Twitter and was like, "Hey, do you want to come on my podcast?" Now, backstory, G. Bush is the worst person in the world at checking his phone. Never. He DM'd him 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
He left Bill Simmons unread for 2 weeks and then finally got back. They agreed to a time. And I was telling him, he told me he was going to do it. He asked what he should plug, yada, yada. And I was like, whatever you want, G. If you guys are chatting up before the show, and I very clearly said before the show, you can mention your producer played basketball at Emerson. His daughter's now a soccer player at Emerson. She's a freshman. It might be a little icebreaker, whatever. And G, being the coolest dude he is, was like, "Oh, I got you. We're all good." And he's like, "I wanted to save it for the show. I want to give you a shout out." So I appreciate G for giving me a shout out. Shout out Emerson Hoops. My Curly texted me after that, and he's like, "No one knows who you are, but they're all like, Bill Simmons mentioned Emerson College on the podcast." And I was like, "Hey, it's
so Bill Curry listens to Bill Simmons as well."
One of his players showed him. One of his players.
I was gonna say Bill Crow doesn't really strike me as a podcast guy.
He likes Russillo.
Interesting. Okay, moving on. So Colorado football. I don't know if you watched the game. I literally was dialed in from the first snap of that game against TCU. I don't know how good they are because a lot of their offense was just getting rid of the ball very, very quickly. And you could just tell that offensive line up front, they're not very great in the trenches, but man, they are the most entertaining team in college football, bar none. Shedeur, for me, he's a first-round pick talent in the NFL whenever he's eligible. And Travis Hunter might be one of the top 3 to 5 greatest athletes in college football history. I'm like blown away.
You gotta chill.
I am blown. Mike, listen. Who else? And I mean, it's a similar situation to Ohtani in the sense that there's a lot of great baseball players out there, but not a lot of them get the opportunity to showcase their ability to pitch and hit. If they set their mind to it and devoted their career to it, there's no doubt that Mike Trout could have been an unbelievable pitcher and a great hitter. Like, you couldn't convince me otherwise. But Travis Hunter is the only guy that I can remember in recent memory, maybe since Deion Sanders, that is going out there and being the number one receiver on the team, being the number one corner on the team, and not just playing those positions, dominating at those positions. I've never seen it.
Yeah, and listen, what he did against TCU, incredible. But he's done it for one game. Like, before we say top 3 college athlete I've ever seen, like, Frank.
But he was doing this.
Hold on. I'm with you. He was the number 1 overall recruit coming out of high school. Remember that. The number 1, not 5-star top. The number 1 overall recruit coming out of high school. This is not to be unexpected from a guy who was expected to be the best high school player in his class. Now, what he did against TCU is unprecedented. We haven't seen it in forever. It was awesome to watch. He plays with swag. Combine his swag with Deion's swag. Like, it's the match made in heaven to a college football fan. But before we anoint him on the same level as Ohtani, who's now done it in Major League Baseball for 3 to 4 years on both sides, let's see him do it for like 3 weeks at a Power 5 level. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think you're on the right path. I just think you're a little premature on anointing him for doing it against a kind of overrated TCU team, which we'll get to in a sec. But it was awesome. Like, that Colorado game, Frank, was what makes college football so fun. The personalities, Deion Sanders, and I'm going on a podcast later tonight, and one of the things that they asked me to talk about is, like, what makes good media, or what makes someone in the media good. And in my opinion, whether you agree with someone's opinions or not, like, they need to make you feel a certain way. If you listen to someone or you watch me and you go, I don't really care. I don't care if you're a genius and what you're saying is right. You're not creating an emotion in somebody. Deion, you either love him or hate him. There's no way you can watch a Deion Sanders press conference and be like, didn't move the needle for me. You're either all on Coach Prime's side or you're all against Coach Prime. When you have someone that polarizing in a position that he's in, who will call out reporters, which I don't even agree with, but I love for the entertainment value, who's willing to put his name on the back, like, not really, but like, stand his ground for his guys from the HBCU schools, bring all his guys to Jackson State, say, screw you guys. I don't need everybody else that's been here. I'm recruiting my guys, and then to win and to talk your talk and then walk the walk, like, that is the best part of college football that you can't replicate in any other sport, Frank. What Deion did in college football for 1 week, and we'll see if it works for the season, TBD. For 1 week, Deion showed us why college football is unmatched in terms of the personalities it brings out. Unmatched.
Well, first and foremost, Deion, before he became, a college football coach, was, he was in the NFL Network for a really long time. So he knows, I would say, probably better than anyone, given his pro career and then what he did in the TV business, how to work a crowd and he's one of the most charismatic figures you'll see. And if he wasn't being, a college football coach right now, there's no doubt he would be on First Take with Stephen A. Or he'd be on Undisputed with Skip Bayless. Hilarious, by the way, that Shannon Sharp is out there calling Stephen A. Skip.
Did you see Stephen A. put a name tag on today?
No, I honestly, I haven't watched either of those shows in forever. I'll occasionally see like a clip if something goes viral with Stephen A. But
I just saw the clip. Stephen A. introduces, like, in case anyone forgot, real quick, he put like a "Hi, my name is Stephen A." on his chest. It was quite funny. Well, like, well played. Yeah, I haven't watched those shows, but
like I said, love Colorado right now, ranked number 22 in the country. We'll see how long that lasts. Their preseason win total was 3.5. That has now been boosted up to 5.5. And I was looking at their schedule, Mike. I think their floor is 8 wins.
No.
Because here's why. Because they're going to beat Nebraska on Saturday. Nebraska's awful.
I agree.
They're going to beat Colorado State. Now we're already up to 3 wins. You can give them losses to Oregon and USC. That's 2 losses. They're going to beat Arizona State. They're going to beat Stanford. I think they're better than UCLA. Oregon State will be a close game. I'm not sure. They're going to beat Arizona. They'll beat Washington State and then Utah. So the W's are Nebraska's 2, Colorado State 3, Arizona State 4, Stanford 5, UCLA 6, Washington State 7, Arizona 8. I think their floor is 8 wins. And if they just win one of those next couple games, they could easily be a 9-win team. I think 5.5 is a disrespectful number. No. And if you have the ability to find that on your sportsbook, I would absolutely destroy that over immediately. Like I said, Shedeur Sanders is a flat-out superstar. Look at his – I mean, he dominated Jackson State. First game of the FBS level, same exact production. Set the school record for passing yards for Colorado. Travis Hunter went from plus 4,000 to plus like 1,200 to win the Heisman in just a week. If he keeps this up, like –
it's not going to happen. Like, here's – and this – I am all Team Deion. I want them to succeed. This is going to come off as me being – a negative Nancy. I'm just being a realist here. They transitioned and flipped over 76% of the roster. They are not deep. They have a couple stars and they have no depth behind them. When the total of a football season in a Power 5 conference rings its dirty head, I covered A&M and Tennessee for 5 years before this. Injuries happen. Their starters, fine. They can compete. They don't have the depth, in my opinion, to withstand the grind of a full season in the Pac-12. And when it gets later in the season, yes, are they more talented on paper than a lot of the teams you mentioned, the Stanford, potentially UCLA, even though I'd probably give the talent edge to UCLA, Oregon State's, like those teams by the end of the season are just built more to sustain a 12, 13, 14 game season. In a one-game scenario, they have the talent to beat outside of maybe Oregon and USC, anyone in the conference. But over the stretch of a season, I'm just not sure they can withstand that. And also, TCU is ranked 23rd. TCU lost
TCU was ranked 17th.
17th. They lost a lot of people from that championship team, and they were ranked in the top 25 based off the fact that they played in the champ. Like, this is not TCU. Before the year, I wasn't very high on. They lost Max Duggan. They lost their 3 best guys up front on the defensive line. Like, it's impressive what they did. I'm not taking anything. What Colorado did was impressive. But let's not pretend they just beat Alabama in Alabama. They beat a TCU team who was a historical fairy tale last season, got every break to go their way, got destroyed by Georgia in the championship game, and then this year it's kind of back to reality for them, which is a team that doesn't play defense and can score some points. So it was cool what they did. Sanders looked great. Travis Hunter was awesome. Deion, talk your talk, man. You have earned it. But let's just pump the brakes on anointing them a real team when we haven't seen them actually do it.
So how many wins do you think they'll have this year?
I do agree. Over 5.5. Like, I agree with that.
So what's the numbers?
I think saying the floor is 8. I think
7?
7 would be a great season. Like, 7 is like the ceiling. Like, the high, if everything goes their way, they win 7 games.
I can't wait for that. Like, if they could put up a fight against USC in that game, and they're undefeated going into that USC game, if they manage to somehow beat Oregon.
Game day that morning?
Or Fox NFL kickoff or Barstool pregame show, whatever you want. Give them all 3.
Yeah, seriously, they would deserve it.
The longer Colorado stays undefeated, the better. By the way, so Travis Hunter is not eligible until the NFL draft till 2025. Well, some guy, I don't know. It's weird the way college football works. I believe Johnny Manziel went pro after sophomore year, so I don't know. But anyway,
you have to have 3 years in college. Manziel redshirted and then played 2 years. So.
Right. Moral of the story is Travis Hunter is eligible for the 2025 draft. Is there any scenario where he's not a top 2 pick in the draft?
He's not big. It's the only thing. He's like kind of frail. He's like, I think 5'10", 165, 170. And those guys, when they get projected to the next level, sometimes fall just because of their stature. He's so freaking talented, and he's not a quarterback, so that's how he falls out of the top 2. But yeah, he's unbelievable. He's unbelievable. And here, Franco, you talk for a second. I got to pull up a stat for you. Hold on.
Travis Hunter is an absolute superstar, and he should absolutely be a top 2 pick when he's eligible for the draft in 2025. I kind of wish he was eligible for the draft this year because that I think would make the conversation even more exciting. But there's no way, no matter how great Travis Hunter does this year, there's no way he would surpass Caleb Williams as the best player in college football and the presumptive number 1 overall pick. I don't think he's that good or good enough to surpass Caleb Williams, but he's definitely up there in terms of talent and ability.
Yeah.
Elsewhere in college football,
stud.
Clemson. I used to work with this guy who played for went to Clemson, was a huge Clemson fan. Glad to see that they're a dumpster fire. Dabo Swinney's lost all his magic. And LSU, probably 4th straight week 1 loss. It was a tough matchup against Florida State. I hope they bounce back. I always like LSU. I think Brian Kelly sort of make them a little bit less likable, but we'll see what happens here down the stretch with LSU.
Yeah, I don't like Brian Kelly. Never have, never will. As someone who covered A&M for a few years and have become a default Aggie fan just with some of the relationships I've built. LSU is one of their rivals. Death Valley is one of the coolest stadiums in all of college football. Being there for the night game when Joe Burrow torched A&M sucked to cover, but was unbelievable to watch. I was on the field as Joe Burrow ran out of Death Valley. Frank in that famous video of him behind him with the Burrow spelt in the Cajun way. Like, that place is awesome. LSU, whatever. It's the first game of the season, non-conference. I don't love their quarterback situation, but they're going to be fine. They're so talented. Florida State looked good. I don't trust the ACC. I'm not totally buying them. And Duke, shout out to Mike Elko, former Aggie defensive coordinator, is now their head coach. Frank, you know where Mike Elko comes from?
Everson.
No, New Jersey, bro. He's a Jersey guy. So Jersey boys taking over the world. He's from South Brunswick, which is kind of right in between where you and I grew up. So shout out to Coach Elko. One of the nicest dudes I've ever had a chance to cover. Super friendly, and I'm wishing him not the best. But hey, that quarterback for Duke can play. Riley Leonard's a baller.
I mean, Clemson, if they just executed in the red zone, they win that game. But it was a laughing stock that they had the ball like at the goal line twice and couldn't score a touchdown. And they ended up screwing it up twice. That's pretty hard to do in at that level of football. Kind of makes you think that maybe they made a mistake of letting DJ Uiagalelei walk, given how well he played in week 1 for Oregon State and how out of sync and flustered Klubnik looked in that game.
Klubnik will be fine, by the way. That kid's
before we get to the NFL, I'll hit on 2 things real quick. First of all, USA basketball responded in a big way this morning, Tuesday morning, beating Italy by like around 40 points. But I just don't understand for the life of me how in the hell they lose to Lithuania, whose only notable player is Jonas Valanciunas. Like, look at that roster. How many, like, you would draft like 8 USA guys before you draft your first guy from Lithuania, and they go out there and they beat USA. I just don't understand it. Like, Jonas Valanciunas, who didn't even play that well, leads a team that beats the United States full of, max NBA talent.
Stars, yeah. Frank, to give the people out there a little context, what is my best skill set as a basketball player?
Your ability to morale, I would say. You're a very good morale booster.
That is true. The right answer, though, is shooting threes. That's about all I was good for. In FIBA play, 3-pointers are what you live and die by. And I believe, if I'm correct, didn't they make their first 8 threes and 12?
I didn't see the game. They were up like 31-12 after the first quarter. They shot like 56% from 3 for the game. And honestly, Mike, if you shoot 56% from 3,
you should win.
You, me, Eli, Pat, and
Jimmy Rhodes.
Someone else, Jimmy Rhodes. If we played the NBA team and we hit 60% of our threes, we beat them.
Hey, it's just like how UMBC beat Virginia, how Davidson upset a couple teams on the way. Like, the beauty of basketball, and this is why it's different than football and other sports, is if a team gets just red hot from 3, and sometimes there's no explanation for it. Sometimes just guys make their shots. Plain and simple, you chuck it, you make it. Good offense beats good defense. They got hot. When you're in a hole like that, as Team USA was there, I believe they're down 19 after the first quarter. It was 31-12, right? Like that. You have to change your entire game style to get back into it. And if they just keep making threes, and when you shoot 56% from the game, like, is it a little concerning? Yes. Like, they should never lose to Lithuania. Ever, 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 ever. But it's basketball. You have a bad shooting night. The other team shoots well, and any team can beat any team on any given day. I'll go back to maybe the most famous upset in our history, Frank. But we played Amherst College, and someone on the broadcast before the game, Amherst was the defending champions. They'd won 29 in a row, and someone, and maybe you remember who this was, but the pregame broadcast was like, there is a 0% chance Emerson will end their winning streak today. Amherst is too talented, and they will crush the Lions. And we ended up winning. Frank, do you remember who said that?
I don't remember.
Yeah, must he had a big head and a tie that was probably too tight that day. But it's basketball, man. It happens, and if you shoot well, you can beat any team. And Lithuania shot the lights out the ball. Team USA didn't and just couldn't come back. Today was a nice bounce back, though. I was encouraged by the way they beat the crap out of Italy to prove, like, hey, that was kind of a fluke. Don't count us out yet.
I think that Canada is probably going to win. I think that I want to see a USA-Canada final, SGA and RJ Barrett and whoever else Canada has. I got to check out their roster again, but SGA
is a couple more NBA guys.
SGA is like an absolute freaking nature in this tournament. So
his game is perfect for international play. By the way, they also have Dylan Brooks, Dwight Powell, Olynyk, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, RJ Barrett, and those are Zach Edey. So
Zach Edey's on that team?
He doesn't play, but he is on the team.
Oh, Zach Edey would get annihilated. He's going to be so terrible when he plays in the NBA. It's going to be hilarious. Anyway, I just can't. Zach Edey is just awful. Anyway, the Yankees just got out of the first inning against the Tigers. By the way, Yankees playing a little bit better. Swept the Astros for the first time since 2013. Couldn't invest for a better time to do it. I don't remember if the Yankees have played the Astros much since 2013, but to go out there and sweep them when it mattered, with the season on the line was great to see. Jasson Dominguez being back
yesterday, we gave up 20 runs in the most important game of the season. That was fun. I was there.
Nice. Jasson Dominguez. I gotta check out his first at bat coming up here shortly, but just the addition by subtraction of Harrison Bader and Jasson Dominguez has just changed everything for the Yankees. They finally have a competent outfield. And so like there's positives and negatives to this. The positives are like the future looks bright. Austin Wells is your catcher for next year. Anthony Rizzo just got shut down here on Tuesday, but he's your starting first baseman. Second base, LeMahieu. Shortstop will be third base, Peraza. Outfield will be Dominguez, Pereira, Judge, and then DH. Unfortunately, it looks like it'll be Stanton next year. Hopefully, they find a way to flip him or get rid of him or buy him out or whatever. But I just feel like Austin Wells threw a guy out the other day against Houston. He threw a taser to second base. It was an unbelievable throw. Really excited about him. It just feels like the whole energy around the team has changed with the arrival of Jasson Dominguez, aka the Martian, who I'll never forget. Jeff Passan wrote an article about him in 2019, and I was like, who the hell is this guy? And like, if you have a nickname the Martian, that means like you're a freaking nature. He was getting comparisons to Mickey Mantle and Mike Trout, and right off the top, he's certainly he had an absolute tank home run against Houston. It was one of the most. It didn't like travel up to the upper deck, but it was a majestic home run. And
he's got a pretty swing. The contact was solid. I'll just go back to the Guardians on this to make my point about Dominguez because I've seen more of them than anyone else this year. They've called up so many players, both hitters and pitchers this season, that it feels like every third game there's someone making his MLB debut, right? And it's pretty evident. And this is not like a concrete rule. This changes. Just from kind of watching a guy, the way he handles himself in the box, a way a pitcher handles a little adversity on the mound, like you can almost kind of tell if someone gets it or not. And I know that's arbitrary. That's not like a thing that's steadfast, but you look at someone like that dude looks like he'll have a long career in the pros, or man, that guy's over his head. Do you know what I'm saying? Are you following, Frank?
Yeah.
Dominguez looks like a dude who, despite being 20 years old, is an 8-year veteran in Major League Baseball. Like he just looks like he belongs, despite the fact he can't buy a beer. The way his approach in the box, he's not chasing pitches left and right. He's patient. He's powerful. His swing's compact. He glides like a gazelle in the outfield. He just looks like, despite this being his first experience on the biggest stage in baseball, despite the fact he's 20 years old, he just kind of fits in. And who knows if he turns out to be an absolute superstar or a bust. Like, who knows? But he passes the eye test immediately. And that's something I haven't been able to say about a lot of guys I've seen get called up this season. And to do it in the middle of a playoff race, even though the Yankees are kind of on the outside looking in now, they still have a little life. To do it in that circumstance gives me more encouragement that in the long run, the Yankees have found an absolute stud here in center field.
As DJ LeMahieu hits a leadoff home run here, I guess the only potential negative is that this means, given if the Yankees do end up, finishing really strong here down the stretch, that means that Boone and Cashman left to see another year. Not that they were going to get fired anyway, but If they could show that, they're turning things around and they got some guys here who can play and they played well under that leadership, then nothing's going to change. But maybe
actually, Frank, let me throw something at you real quick. So Terry Francona hasn't said he's going to retire. He's said he's going to retire. Like, this is
right. Yeah, I've seen the quotes.
This is last year. A name that keeps circulating in Cleveland to replace him is your boy Aaron Boone. If he's not the Yankees manager, Cleveland's going to have a lot of interest in him.
The Yankees aren't getting rid of Boone. It's not happening. They're Boone and Cashman will be back 100% for next year, and there's pretty much nothing that could change that at this point. That's just the reality of the situation. But things are looking up here as Jasson Dominguez digs in for his first at bat as a New York Yankee. But let's move on to the NFL, Mike.
Yep.
New York Giants.
I'm
Sunday
excited.
Night Football. Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys have owned the series of late. I believe they've won 11 of 12. What's the feeling from a New York Giants fan at this moment in time? Is it playoffs or bust? Daniel Jones is, the second comeback. How are Giants fans feeling about this team right now going into the season? Win total set at 7.5.
It's weird because you're coming off a playoff berth. So your natural thought would be, okay, we added some pieces. We should be better. Our offensive line should be better. We have Darren Waller in the passing game now. Daniel Jones is the second year in Dayball's offense. The rookies they drafted, Thibodeau, Evan Neal, both came on strong at the end of the season. They should take that secondary jump. They traded for Isaiah Simmons. Yet their win total is 3 games lower than it was what they finished at last year. So something doesn't add up. My gut, and this sucks, my gut tells me they're going to take a step back. My gut tells me Vegas is more right than what the average person looking at the stat sheet and the depth chart in front of them should say. They got so lucky in a couple instances last year, Frank, where Brian Daboll willed them to a victory, where he simply outcoached the other guy and found a way to allow the Giants to win a football game where they really didn't have the business to win it. I think the defense should be pretty good. I'm excited for Wink Martindale to play almost Golden State Warriors-esque defense where no one really has a position. They have like 6 guys that are kind of linebackers, kind of safeties, corners, can rush, can drop. Like, I think it's going to be wonky, but I just don't really believe in At the end of the day, I just don't really believe in Daniel Jones. I think he's okay. He's fine. He's medium sauce. He's like going to Buffalo Wild Wings and you order mild. Like, it's okay. You're not going to go home and rave about it, but it's okay. It'll fill you up. But if you don't have a quarterback, I don't know, man. You have Aaron Rodgers now. So, for the first time in our lives, we are in different positions of how we feel about our starting quarterback. I loved Eli Manning. I would die for him. Now I'm at a point where I don't have Eli, and I don't want to get my expectations too high because I know I'm going to get disappointed because I don't have a quarterback that I believe is capable of leading us to the promised land of a real playoff run. Last year was lucky. I know they won a game. It was awesome. I hope I'm wrong. But I think it's about a 500 team, Frank. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets, they just have a really hard schedule, as I've said before. I just don't know what to expect, honestly. 9 wins, 10 wins, but I just want to honestly get in the playoffs, beat the Patriots for the first time.
Wait, the Jets or Giants for 9 or 10?
Jets.
Jets for 9?
Giants is hard. The NFC East is so competitive. The Eagles, obviously, reigning NFC champs. Cowboys. There's no reason why they should be slowing down with Parsons on that defense, Dak, CeeDee Lamb, Tony Pollard now poised to step up big time for that offense. The Commander, I think Sam Howell is actually gonna be pretty good this year. And
it's my fantasy sleeper. I'm gonna take take Sam Howell the 6th round. Don't tell anybody.
Sam Howell, I think, should have been a first-round pick or at least a second-round pick at worst in the NFL draft. That ended up falling to the 5th round. That dude was a Heisman contender, and he fell to the 5th round. I didn't really understand it, but I think he can really play. So couple that with, tough games against San Francisco, Seattle, Miami, Buffalo, the Jets. Who knows what the Raiders are going to be at that point in the season? The Patriots are always a tough game. Who knows the Saints, aside from, the Cardinals in week 2,
yeah, the Jets have to get off to a hot start. They have to.
No, I'm talking about the Giants.
Well, both teams, but the Jets too as well. Their schedule.
The Jets' first 6 games are really, really hard, but the Giants schedule is on a cakewalk either. So 7.5 feels like the right number, just based on the schedule and their opponents they got. Because the only 2 definite wins I see on that schedule, or you could give them 3 wins off the bat. Washington at least once, maybe twice. The Rams and the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So
It's brutal. It's brutal.
We'll see. It just feels like, despite the Jets having, Aaron Rodgers and theoretically how that should provide this huge boost to the team and the roster and all that goes into that, like, the reality is, it's still got a really hard schedule. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence are all in the AFC, and you can make a strong argument that Aaron Rodgers is probably the fourth or fifth best quarterback in the conference. So just as
yeah. Well, Jets and the Browns are in extremely similar positions this year. Talented rosters, question marks at quarterback. For different reasons, question marks at quarterback. And trying to pick the 7 AFC playoff teams, Frank, is damn near impossible because there's going to be 2 or 3 teams you leave out of that 7. But you could also make a case, if the cards fell right, they can win the Super Bowl. Like, I don't think the Dolphins make the playoffs. We released our picks today. I don't have Miami in. If you tell me Tua is healthy for the whole season and the offense and the defense isn't a train wreck, it wouldn't, I'd be surprised, but I wouldn't say there's no way they can't win the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? And you look at the NFC, there's not 7 good teams, 8 and 9 in that conference. If you told me, hey, the Giants can win a Super Bowl, I'm telling you, no way in hell. Like, the Giants do not have a roster to win the Super Bowl. So that conference is so deep. And I think this is actually a tough question, Frank. What's easier, picking the playoffs in the NFC or the AFC? The NFC doesn't have 7 good teams, and the AFC has too many good teams.
Well, let me tell you the teams real quick. So I'd say Bills, Jets, Bengals, Jaguars, Chiefs. It's 5. So 2 more. Ravens 6 and Dolphins 7. So those are your 7 AFC teams. And the NFC, I go Philly, Dallas. Wow, the NFC North is impossible. I go with Detroit, Chicago, Saints. Who's winning the NFC South? Are we going with the Saints to win the NFC South? I hate Derek Carr. I can't stand Derek Carr. The Buccaneers stink.
There's not 7 good teams in the NFC.
All right, we'll say this: the Saints win the South, and we got the 49ers and the Seahawks. Those are your 7 in the NFC. I feel more confident about the AFC because the NFC, given the just chaotic nature of the NFC North and NFC South this year. You could tell me that the Panthers win that division. You could tell me that the Packers win that division, and I'd buy it. So I'd say based on those 2 things, the AFC is probably a little bit easier to predict because the quarterbacks are so good, at least at the top. And it's pretty easy to weed off teams like the Broncos with Russell Wilson, the Raiders with Garoppolo,
Did I lose you, Frank?
the Colts and the Texans this year, the Browns with Deshaun, pretty much write them off. The Steelers and the Patriots. So I think the AFC is easier to predict.
I think it's tough for different reasons. I disagreed with our playoff picks don't align, which is fine. They shouldn't.
We have the Browns making the playoffs. Get out of here with that.
I do. I think the Browns and the Steelers make the playoffs. I think 3 teams from the AFC North make the playoffs. What's your Super Bowl pick?
I mean, how do you possibly pick against the Chiefs? How can you? I mean,
fair.
If this is just a sign of things to come, and Kelce's injury ends up being, a season ender or something that limits him for half the season or limits his ability to move all year, and then Mahomes gets dinged up, so I have to go with the Chiefs in the AFC, and then the NFC. Everyone's so high on the Niners. I don't know. I just don't trust that quarterback situation to hold up.
Yeah. I'm taking the Eagles over the Bengals in the Super Bowl for me. And that's a little bit of a pick. Kansas City's the right pick. I couldn't get myself to pick them again. So I'm going with the Eagles over the Bengals.
Yeah. It feels like in the AFC, it's one of 4 teams: Chiefs, Bills, Bengals, Jets. And then the NFC.
You can't put the Jets in that. Come on.
Yeah, I guess of course you can. Because the Jets were a great team last year. Like, they were quarterback short. Now they got Rodgers to replace Zach Wilson. That's
just that offensive line to win a Super Bowl.
That's really better than you think. Mekhi Becton's a first-round pick. I think he's actually going to be pretty good. And Vera Tucker is a beast on the O-line. They got a great running back room. They got some really solid.
And listen, I'm high on the Jets. I think I picked them in the playoffs as well. Like, I'm not anti-Jets. I just think.
And then we got DJ Reed comparing him to 85 Bears. Let's go. Let's freaking go. It starts on Monday Night Football.
I'm excited too, man. That Bills game is going to be crazy, that week 1 matchup.
We'll say The Jets get started on the right foot. We'll be live the day after the Jets beat the Bills in week 1 with full reaction to the Jets starting their season 1-0. Travis Kelce playing on Thursday Night Football, scoring 4 touchdowns, and everything playing right with the world. The Yankees completing the sweep of the Tigers, coming to within 2 games of a wild card spot in the American League playoff picture. Everything is right with the world, and the USA winning the gold medal at the FIBA World Cup, and the Browns getting off to a loss against the Bengals in week 1. That will do it for this edition of the Lucas Podcast.
Peace.
See you all next Tuesday as we recap the Jets' victory over the Buffalo Bills.